Oh my word. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the General T27, the free tank that you can pick up as part of the Battle Pass on World of Tanks console. It is the General T27, the Tier 8 Czechoslovakian heavy/medium tank. It's not really either one, to be honest with you. It kind of has the in-between. It's like a heavium, even though it doesn't particularly have that much armor. The turret armor can be a little bouncy, as we'll get into in this video. We're going to try and keep the video short and sweet, unlike the tank itself being large and long. Yeah, let's have a look at the armor model now. So, as you can see, turret armor is not particularly the best you'll ever see in game. Of course, we have 100mm pretty much on the flattest part of the turret, going down to 90 on the more angled areas, and 80, and, you know, getting less and less as the angle increases. Of course, that's because the armor becomes more effective the more angle there is on the tank. Now, how does the armor stack up when you're coming into your top tier games? Well, oh god, it's not particularly great. You have this big flat side that can pretty much be penned by anyone that comes up against it. Of course, you have the overmatch mechanic within the game, so if you show any of your side to tanks that have a gun caliber higher than 120mm, I believe it is, that means that they're going to go straight through the side of you, regardless of the angle at which you're showing them your side. And you do have that big area on the top of the turret above the gun mantlet that is a key weak point that everyone will be able to actually penetrate if they aim there, because it is only 40mm of effective armor. And of course, the cupolas themselves are weak too, so yeah, you're going to be getting penned pretty much in those fairly regularly, having only 100mm, and they are not angled whatsoever. They are flat, so if you manage to hit them, you'll pretty much pen. Of course, the side of the turret is pretty weak, to be honest with you. You're going to have the ability to actually go through the side of it fairly easily, considering it has, 90mm, you know, 100mm at the weakest point, and of course most tanks at tier 8 are going to be able to go through it. What does this tank feature in terms of its benefits, however, are the actual gun that this tank gets. It's got a 240 alpha damage gun with an autoloader, of course having 3-shot clip, making this tank very, very nice to hit against your opponent. 720 total clip potential, and you can dish out that damage fairly quickly in about 4 seconds roughly. Yeah, well, actually, I went and over-approximated it, 3.6 seconds, which is, I believe, a really, really nice way to dish out 720 damage consistently. You have a reload time of 22.5 seconds, which isn't the nicest considering you're only doing, 720. Yeah, when you combine that with the 3.6 seconds you've got to add on to that because of the intraclip reload, your grand total reload for the entire rounds and firing is about 25 or 26.1 seconds total, and that's with the equipment that I've got on, including ventilation and of course the commander perks that I've put on the vehicle, which of course include rapid loading, which decreases the gun reload speed by 10%. So yes, this tank becomes a little bit painful when you're on your reload, because you've got to find that 22.5 seconds where you've pretty much got absolutely nothing you can do to your opponents, and you kind of have to try and hide against them to, you know, try and deal with that damage as soon as you come out of cover, but straight back to them. Oh, in terms of the way that I set up this tank, of course I went with improved ventilation, advanced concealment, and gun stabilizer. The reasoning behind this is because, of course, you want the best accuracy throughout whenever you're playing this tank, and we want improved ventilation to improve the accuracy, the reload time, and just basically all of the little bits about the tank to make it a little bit better when you're playing. Advanced concealment, however, that was just because I was running out of money when I was playing this tank. I didn't have enough money to be able to put advanced optics on, which I'll do now because that is far more important in a tank like this, because you're not particularly going to stay undetected within the game, and we'll whack that on now, bringing the view range up to 443 meters. Of course, the still concealment goes up significantly, but that doesn't really matter too much. Now, One thing that I do need to note about this tank, however, is that you may potentially want to put on traction system or advanced powertrain to boost up the top speed and the horsepower, because if you don't do that, it kind of is a bit slow to get up to that top speed. The terrain resistances must be fairly mediocre, and the engine power seems to be a little bit annoying. It's not the slowest tank, but yeah, certainly a boost in speed could make it a little bit more comparable to something like the Skoda T50. However, when you're comparing it to such an amazing tank, you're probably not going to get much of a comparison, and certainly at tier 8, this is not going to compare to the tier 9 Skoda T50 very well. It definitely beats the TVP VTU, the tech tree version of the Czech medium tanks, but it definitely doesn't have much to compare with the TVP VTU being one of the worst tier 8s in the game. Yeah, it definitely is a decent one, and we'll get into some gameplay to showcase how this tank plays in the game. We've got 2 replays, we're going to go into them, we're going to give some analysis and show you how you can play this tank. If you did manage to pick it up at Season Pass rank 75, I believe you can pick it up. It will cost you 2,000 gold to get the season pass, and of course you have to get to rank 75, but I'm sure most of you who watch my videos probably purchase the season pass, because I do implore you to actually, if you're going to have gold on your account, to spend it on the season pass, because you make the gold back and some, because you get the key cards, you get the gold just from actually having the season pass, and of course you get all of the silver and all of the benefits and the premium tanks that come with it. Yeah, it's 100% worth it for anyone playing this game, and if you really don't want to spend any money, just grind out a couple of the long haul event operations to be able to get some key cards, and then eventually you will be able to get the gold from the actual key cards themselves. So yeah, there you go. Let's get into the gameplay now. Right then, gameplay number 1, we have Sand River. This is one of my more favourable maps that you can get on World of Tanks console. I think it pretty much has an area for everyone within the game, and you're going to be able to have an impact no matter what tank you play in, if you play right. Of course, you have the games where, you know, the enemy team decide that they're going to just YOLO you, and there's not a grand deal you can do about it. But yeah, when you put yourself in a position that generally has the priority, then yeah, you can do alright. Now with the Skoda, well, not the Skoda, the General T27, you want to make sure that you take it into a position that doesn't require too much gun depression, because let's be honest, this thing is fairly big. It's boxy, and it doesn't have the best gun depression values that you can get in any tank, and even though it does get, I believe, 5 degrees of gun depression, when you are so tall and boxy, that depression doesn't really matter too much, because when you're coming over ridge lines like I'm trying to use right now, it doesn't work whatsoever. Now, I noticed that not too many people have pushed over to this side, so what I'm going to do is go and try and take that middle spot over straight in front of me to be able to try and get side shots on anyone that pushes through the top northeastern mountain pass sort of area straight ahead of me right here. And then we can actually get some side shots, and this is a position that is fantastic to use and fantastic way to get some free damage. You can see that the atomic here is in the area. We go for the tracking shot, aiming for that bottom left. We hit him twice. Unfortunately, we don't manage to get another shot in here, but now we go for the reload, and now it's time to help our bog horror here with the Tiger P to be able to try and deal with him. Now we have the Paladin here as well, which is an annoying tank to fight, especially since it has such great DPM, and because its penetration is more than enough to go through the front of the General T27, no matter where he hits. We're going to have to play a little bit more passively. We'll wait for him to fire, and then we're going to possibly take one hit, but we're going to be able to deal a nice 720 alpha damage straight to him, as you see us aim for the big weak point of the Paladin being that lower plate. Of course, we need to stay a little bit aware of artillery, because that is the key thing in this game that is going to be able to penetrate us and just completely ruin our game. I'm sure many of you know all about artillery, and of course, hopefully, as with some new updates coming to World of Tanks, that they'll actually get nerfed in the upcoming updates. I don't know if there ever will be, but I know that Wargaming said that they're looking into potentially changing them. What we do there is make the big mistake, because the Tiger P, I believe, got buffed, and so the armor actually somewhat works. You can't just auto-aim Tiger Ps anymore, which is, I was going to say, a shame or annoying, but to be honest, I've played in the Tiger P. It was an awful tank prior to the update and the buff that I believe it got when the E100 got buffed, or the Maus or whatever it was, during that German heavy tank buffs. Yeah, I definitely think it was needed, and so we can't complain really, to be honest with you. What we're doing here is taking this position again. We've only managed to pick up 1400 hit points worth of damage. Well, it's 11 to 12 and it's not looking particularly great. Our team are so spread out and spread so thin that I can't really support my teammate, especially that Bison up there, unless he spots the opponent that moves up into that position. And of course we don't know whether that's going to happen or not, and so we've just got to be a little bit more passive, but also be mindful that if we are too passive during these games, we're not going to be able to get enough damage. We put 1 shot, we put 2 shots and 3 shots into the AMX M4, and we are now on 2100 hit points. You see what I'm doing here right now is thinking about the artillery. Am I going to get hit by him? Is he going to actually be aiming over this way already? And so what we do is we decide to go down into this little dip, provide some cover from artillery. However, we do have to be mindful that the Tiger P and the T-77 are over there, so now we've got to kind of risk it. Hopefully artillery won't be looking at us as we get hit in the bum there by some sort of medium tank that's on the hill. We don't know what it is at this current moment in time, but you see where I'm aiming on the Tiger P. It's the unangled area of the turret, because of course it's rounded, making the point at which you can basically pen it from whatever angle you're at because of the angling of the tank. If you angle, you can basically hit a flat point at any point when it's a circle, because you have the tangent and you can hit perpendicular to any of the surfaces when you hit a circle, as long as you aim at the right area. Of course, if you're aiming right off at the glancing shot on the circle, then you're not going to be able to pen, so you need to think about that in the game. I know it sounds more complicated than it is, but just aim for the bit that isn't angled whatsoever and you'll do just fine. We put 1 more into the T27 or T77, that's because we have a better intraclip reload than that tank, and so yeah, we've managed to pick up 3000 total damage in this game, or just under, and we picked up 500 assistance. Now that I know that the majority of the tanks have kind of been taken out, or at least most of the heavy tanks that are in this game, there's 1 medium, 3 tank destroyers and 2 artillery. Probably the biggest danger right now is of course the artillery, because if they manage to, or I get spotted by a tank destroyer and the artillery decide to take some shots at me, they don't have to particularly hit me to be able to deal a superb amount of damage, because, you know, the weak side armor like we mentioned at the beginning of this video. Now, where am I going to go from this point? Well, I need to either spot for my team using the view range and the concealment of this tank being, you know, better than average. Of course, if we're coming up against a tank destroyer that's sat in a bush, we're not going to be able to do too much. But now what I need is my teammate to push up with me. As you see me pinging in the chat, help, because I need some support, because now I'm spotted and we're going to have a little bit of a problem if the artillery is aiming at us. We put 1, we put 2 into the striker, which is of course the Kanonen Jagdpanzer skinned version thing in the game. Now 3,200 damage later, of course, 517 assistance, bringing the grand total up to what, 3.7. And now what we want to do is try and push out as much damage before the end of the game to, you know, secure the victory, because it's 9 against 3. I doubt that the 2 artillery are going to be able to pick up that many kills within the game. Unfortunately, don't manage to pick up the last damaging hit on the M4043, and the game ends far before we're able to do anything else. We spot the Iron Rain up there, and we get a little bit of assistance damage. Yeah, a decent game in the general T27. I've only played probably less than 10 or around 10 games in this thing. It's definitely a tank that I've enjoyed playing. Do I think it's super overpowered? Well, no, not particularly. I don't think it's necessarily going to break the game when they all enter the matchmaker as people get through those season pass ranks, but it certainly can be competitive, as you've seen in this game. But the next game is going to show you some other things about the tank, and maybe some of the weak points as well, as to where and when you should be aggressive, and where and when this tank becomes a little bit tedious to play. Second game, Mountain Pass. Of course, this is a pretty decent map for this tank because you've got a lot of corners to be able to poke around. You've got the potential to spot for your team and to actually get effective spotting damage. And of course that's good for those of you who want to maybe 3-mark this tank. I'm not entirely sure I will be going for 3 marks in a tank like this. It's not particularly my favourite playstyle because it doesn't have necessarily the speed I'd want it to maybe have an autoloader, because I feel like when you have an autoloader you want that speed, or like superb speed. Something like an AMX-12T at tier 6 of course has that good light tank kind of feel to it, whereby you can put out that damage really quickly, but also have the ability to then move and deal some damage somewhere else as you reload, so you can relocate and then deal damage straight away using the mobility. Whereas this tank, it's not necessarily the slowest with 50 kilometers an hour top speed, but yeah, it can be a little bit annoying to be able to play. And of course when you've only got 240 alpha damage per shot, it becomes a little bit lackluster if you can't unload your shells to its entirety, as of course you've seen me fire 3 shells here and only 2 of them are penetrated, and we're only on 480 damage already. And of course we're fairly, well, not long into the game, but we've certainly not done a huge amount by the time this game started. However, that does change in the later half of this video, and you'll see me rack up a decent amount of damage. Not the best damage you'll ever see, but yeah, we can definitely do things with this tank that maybe some other tanks maybe that didn't have the autoloader wouldn't have had the opportunity to get as much damage as we did. Now what we're doing here is being a little bit passive, of course, with reloading, because you know the 20-second reload that this tank has, when you've got all of the perks and the equipment and stuff like that I have got on this tank, makes it a little bit better, a little bit nicer to play. And of course when we're moving into positions, we need to think about where the enemies are going to be during our reload, so that we can then best position ourselves for when we are reloaded to dish out that damage very quickly. Now you'll notice that the enemy team have moved around the mountain, and we've got to make sure that we choose the right angle of attack here, because if we're pushed down that flank on my own against 5 tanks with an autoloader that only has 720 alpha damage, considering that most of those are heavy tanks and they've got way more hit points than I have alpha damage, I can't take out enough of them within one go. And now this is the point in the game where I have to be super aggressive. Yes, I'm going to take a hit here potentially, but I need to try and get rid of the bisons here to be able to then progress this flank to turn around and deal with the other tanks that are going to be pushing from our backside. Now unfortunately what I didn't do here is decide to reload, although you know maybe that was a decent idea because we did have the Fatherland coming up. Not that we actually dealt damage to him, because the penetration on the standard rounds is fairly terrible, hence why I'm loading some premium APCR rounds to be able to deal that damage nice and quickly to our opponents. Now one good thing that I noticed within this game is actually that the heavy tanks didn't all push down that behind us, and actually instead this ISM has decided he's going to just go through the middle, which makes it very nice for us to be able to dish out damage to him and then deal with the next one in the line of heavies that have come this way, and then we can turn around and deal with the other group. Of course when a whole team goes in one area of the map all against maybe 2 tanks, you're not going to last very long, but if they diversify themselves or split themselves up, you can deal with that damage much quicker. And what you see me doing here is actually going after the ISM. Yes, I'm going to take a hit, but it's essential that we manage to actually get rid of him, because if we don't, we're not going to be able to then push from whichever angle is best for us. They're going to push from whatever angle is best for the enemy team. And of course when you have a paper tank that doesn't have an infinite amount of clip potential, then yeah, it doesn't particularly ever end very well. Now Javelin here on our team has made the mistake of actually going into the center, pushed up way too far, and I'm going to have to try and support him by coming up into this position. We're going to put one into the Chimera, we're going to put a second one, but unfortunately we didn't manage to pen, and now we've only got one round left in our autoloader, so we've got to pull back. Otherwise we're going to potentially take multiple shots for every one that we're going to be dishing out. Now I've probably scared the Chimera there because I am an autoloader, and of course if you have multiple shots in your autoloader clip and the enemy knows that and they've just been hit once, they're going to be a little bit scared. Are they going to necessarily want to poke again, baiting whether or not they actually have another shot in the clip? Well, that's kind of where autoloaders, you have to be aggressive or pretend like you've got shells in your clip even when you don't, because yeah, it can be beneficial to do that. You're not going to be getting spotted. I'm having an absolute field day with my driving in this game. We've managed to pick up 2,600 damage, which is nice, not a bad result. However, we now have 4 enemy tanks to deal with and maybe get some more damage within this game. Chimera's gone, we've got a ISM, I believe it is, yep, and we've got a heavy tank behind us who we have to potentially deal with, and 2 tank destroyers that I have no idea where they are. They're probably on the hill, but we don't know that for sure, and what we're going to do now is just be aggressive against this ISM. Maybe he'll fire, maybe he'll miss, or maybe he'll try and come over and show us the bottom half of his upper plate, which means that we can put a nice solid round straight into that and pen him and take him out of the game. Now both the tank destroyers are on the bridge, as we can see here. We have a Scorpion G and another Scorpion G, being the Scorpion G apocalypse that's going on right now. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a problem as the Scorpion G takes out the Scorpion G. Jesus, it is just an absolute catastrophe of scorpions. But yeah, there we go. 2,700 damage, 1,248 assistance. Very nice game, very nice result, and certainly showcased what the Skoda T27 or the General T27, they're both the same tank. This is just the skinned version. Yeah, a really nice result. We picked up 40,000 silver as well. You know, this can earn silver as well, which is a benefit. Definitely a tank I would recommend to try and get within the season pass. If you can't reach level 75, you know, try your best, because it is definitely worth it. And of course you want to make the best value for gold that you spend on the season pass, and I think that this is definitely a good value for money. If you were already season rank 75 and you haven't purchased the operation or the season pass itself. Thank you very much for watching this video. Of course, if you want to ask any questions, any queries, or leave your own thoughts as to the equipment and the consumables to run on a tank like the Skoda T27 or General T27, then of course leave those in the comment section down below. And if you want to check out another gameplay video that is fantastic, then I would recommend this one on screen right now. And of course, thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much to the channel members, and I hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.